Hello, hello, hello. It is Thursday, August the 13th, and welcome to Let's Talk Power Live, where we talk about power and education in real ways because we know power and education is real. And we know instructional power is even more real. I'm your host, Dr. Tangi Reed Marshall. What have I been doing? I bring a lot of experience to education, more almost 3 decades, about 3 decades of partnering with families to educate their students, been coaching and helping systems be better so students get the excellent education they deserve. We believe every student deserves an excellent education, and we are on a mission to make sure every one of them has an educator at every level equipped with the mindset, skill set, tools, and resources to ensure they get that education. And we have a heart for middle school educators and middle school leaders. And so that is a big part of who we partner with to ensure that the messiness of middle schools does not become a barrier to students at that really important grade band getting the excellent education they deserve. So every week we come on and we talk about power and education. And this week we're doing the same thing. So welcome to Let's Talk Power Live. And here's what I know. We know that a lot of you are still dating us, and we appreciate a good date. But I want to say thank you to all of our subscribers. And if you're one of the 80% in that group that's still dating, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and share button so you can know that we are coming to you with the content that you really enjoy and that is really serving your educational appetite and making you better at what you love to do. I'm in constant learning, and I know that you are always learning as well. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for being part of the Let's Talk Power Live family. Want to share what I always share every week. When people ask me about why I talk about power and actually what is power, well, here is what power in education is all about. Education is the instrument of democratic designs, and it is no less the instrument of power. The control of information, the shaping of understanding, and the influence of judgment are critical elements common to democratic design, power theory, and educational philosophy. I share that every week because it is important to understand why and what this is all about. About 45, maybe even 50 years ago, there was a conversation around cultural responsiveness. And people are still asking the question, well, what does it mean? What is it? So if it takes 40 years or 50 years for people to understand and have a working definition of cultural responsiveness, it's going to take that much time for us to have a working definition of power and education. And that is why I share it every week. And this is the definition that I share with you every week as well around instructional power. What is it? It can be understood as an educator's use of their state, of their district, of their building ascribed job-related authority to afford or constrain a student's access to learning. In a very concrete way, instructional power seeps in to every decision that you make. Education, on its face, is not a neutral enterprise. It is laden with values and beliefs. And within each of those, or all of those, are the decisions made for people to understand about power in education. And so that is why we have this conversation about power every week. And so before we get on, I want to do some housekeeping things. I want to always remind you about our brand new article that just dropped, What Student Engagement Looks Like Beyond Compliance. Go ahead and get that link right there and that QR code. Excited to have you read and join the conversation, particularly now that school has begun, and or for most people, a lot of kids has begun. There's always this conversation about student engagement. What does it look like? Is it just a Statue of Liberty person raising their hand for every question? What does it look like? In this article, we walk you through what it looks like. And then our power chats for the summer are still going on, and they're dropping every week. So be sure to stay on top of our power chats so you can join us there as well. But tonight, If you joined us last week, you know that we spoke with Karin Chenoweth. She's the founder of Democracy in Education. Her organization's all about helping interested parties become school board members. She has white papers. She helps them decide how to put their platforms together, who might they talk to. She's really instrumental in that. Well, we want to take that conversation a step further. And this week, I am just thrilled to bring to Let's Talk Power Live a dear friend of mine. Met her when I worked at Ed Trust. She is brilliant. She is on fire for education. None other than Dr. Dia Bryant. She's the Deputy Mayor for Education in Jersey City, nationally recognized ed leader, co-leader of the National Math Improvement Project, former executive director of Ed Trust New York. I could go on and on and on, but I'm going to bring her up right now and just welcome Dr. Dia to Let's Talk Power Live. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, let's get started. It's just been, it's the start of school. For a lot of people, you've got young children. I know that you are in that phase of packing up backpacks and getting them to go to sleep on time and wake up on time. And maybe they have lunch and they didn't eat that lunch, all the things, right? All of the things. And so having you talk about, one, your experiences on that side, but your experience as a school board member, your experiences regarding this very important public power domain that people do not really, one, deeply understand. So my first question to you is, what do you wish people understood about the public power of school boards and education? We're going to start right there.
Oh, you're just going to open it up with a big one.
We've met before.
I mean, so there's so much there. Right. And I think to even start that conversation, we have to begin to think about the erosion of civics education in public education over time. If we talk to our elders, they will tell you about how they had a civics course. Yeah, right. So eventually that morphs into social studies, right, over time. Social studies has, when we look at the K-12 landscape, has become a very distilled, very general story of how America became who it was. And even with that, many of our adults struggle to understand what civic engagement means. And even I would argue, many of our elected officials are struggling with what civics means. Who needs to be involved? Why do they need to be involved? Why should they care? And yeah. And I think that's an even bigger question right now because we see birth rates dropping.
Yes, we do. People are not talking about that. I'm so glad you brought that up. Whoa.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And we don't see children as much if you don't actually have personal children in your lives. Nieces, nephews, cousins, you babysit your own children. And so in so many ways, American culture has become this place where children are not allowed, right? Or they're an inconvenience. And what we don't realize is that those children become adults, right? And even in their early adulthood, 15 to 24, there are lessons and things we should be instilling in them about our collective political platforms, our collective needs, as not just as humanity, yes, but for me, it's about the Black children who are trying to change and shift the trajectory of their lives.
Absolutely.
And as one of the people who has been able to do that, I know that education is a powerful tool for that. And so what we have to understand is that, as a parent, I'm the complaining parent. I got a problem with how this was delivered. I got a question about the rubric. I got questions about subjectivity. I got
Listen,
questions about expectations and rules and feedback. And I
I got a
just said,
question about why you picked that text, why you wrote that name in the math problem. Why do we? Oh, I have my sister kept the letter that I wrote to my son's social studies teacher when his teacher wanted him to assume the role of a slave owner.
we ain't doing that.
Why are we doing that perspective? Why?
Why?
Why? So yes, this public power of education.
And I will say, honestly, I am deeply concerned because I think that there's always been this subculture of school boards being a launch into bigger political
Yes.
spaces, right? But I think that's taken over.
Mm.
And some people watch reality shows. I don't like reality TV, but I watch board meetings on YouTube.
Isn't that a reality show on it? That's a reality show by itself.
Because there's this beauty in how far we've gotten away from what this was meant to do.
Mm.
And I personally believe that school boards are one of the last standing remnants of what democracy as an experiment or as an institution was meant to be. This is where we get the people in the neighborhoods who care about the kids and the future of the neighborhood to come together and make sure there are facilities, there are human resources, there are financial resources, all working together to create an experience that will launch children into their future. We've lost a lot of that.
Well, that brings me to my next question. And my next question to you is, when adults hold this power in education, how can we tell that what they're doing is really being organized around what children need, or whether it is being organized around the adult agendas and what adults are performing?
I mean, Dr. Tangi, that's a complex question because
let's talk about it.
Some folks have gotten really good at camouflaging it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm doing this for the kids, but this is actually about a set of developers who have asked me to do a thing. I'm doing this for kids, but this is really about an adult interest organization who has asked me to run and hold their platform. And we see that all too much across the nation. It is becoming harder and harder to tell.
Okay.
And I will say that many of the ethics laws that govern how boards behave and how they are supposed to operate have become warped and almost weaponized against free speech. So you will see boards vote yes unanimously, or maybe one or two no's here and there. But it's all sort of folks trying to play in these sandboxes where you have folks who genuinely care about kids and they think the thing you're going to do is going to harm children.
Right.
And then you have another group who are like, nah, if we don't do this, I actually personally do not win.
I don't win and I don't stay in my spot. Wow. I want to share some data pieces with you and get your take on them. Because we know data matters, right? More than 90,000 locally elected school board members serve across about 13,000 school districts. They serve 49.4 million students. But here's the thing. Public elementary and secondary education spending reached $767.8 billion in 2022. So you know that the numbers, you know enough about policy and data for it to catch up to the timetables. But like, board decisions shape the policy, the budgets, and the leadership of the public trust. With that much money being spent across these 13,000 school districts, and we know how the numbers break out by racial group. I don't like the term subgroup, so I by racial category and racial group. How does the board really ensure that every student is getting the excellent education they need to have?
Well, there's a few questions that I have back for you.
Oh no.
I mean, you know how long we have debated the purpose of education.
Absolutely.
And the purpose of education for all those categories is, was, and are different.
They are. And that is, I'm so glad you brought that up, because we keep wanting to have, and you and I have had these conversations
Yeah.
over meals, where we keep pretending that the system is a thing and it's actually not. Right?
Yeah.
We keep saying to ourselves education as though there's an umbrella, and that we all kind of fit under the umbrella like the rain. And we
Yeah.
both know this, that for formerly enslaved people, education was meant for a certain thing.
That's
For
right.
the owners of humans, educating their children was for a certain thing. And as the United States of America became the thing that we call it, everyone fit in one category or the other category. And
That's right.
so when we have this conversation around what does it mean to educate, we have to then say, I love the prepositions, right? The prepositional phrases of to whom, for what,
To what end?
and to
Yeah.
what end. And as a one, you are a former board member, and now in your role as a deputy mayor for education, what a big hat. And how do you, given your baseline knowledge, and not just baseline, but your very extensive knowledge, really push against what you know to be those forces that are trying to ensure education remains stratified?
I'll be honest. My mission and goal for 22, 23 years in this work has been the same.
Yeah.
It's about the kids. And I let the work talk. I let the work talk.
Let the work talk,
I'm going to raise money for these kids.
which you've done.
Still doing. We are going to ensure that they have the partnerships that they need. We can no longer specifically as boards delay capital improvements because it ends up costing taxpayers so much more.
Down the line, because if the building is crumbling today and you wait until next month, it's going to be crumbling at an exponential rate in the 30-day period.
That's right. And if you wait 2 years, you're not going to be able to afford it.
You're not going to be able to afford it. You will
Right?
not afford it. You will not be able to afford it. Here's another round of data you might find important to think about. Adult conflict can crowd out children. 23% of board members say COVID and the culture war conflicts negatively affected their board and their governance, their ability to actually govern. Those districts in that 23% represented about 28% of US students. 28% of the 49 million students were schooled in places like that.
Yep.
And students in districts with a lot of board community conflict rose from, look at this number, 8% pre-pandemic to 47% during that time. And then they still say that 38% of board members say their boards are divided into factions. How is Johnny going to learn how to read, ma'am, when all of this shenanigans is going on?
This is a question for the ages. And,
Right?
it's sort of a question of, are boards our most effective tool?
Mm,
I don't know the answer to that.
right.
I mean, I also have a really big question about whether or not we have a good understanding of what governance means.
I asked that question to Karin Chenoweth last week. And guess who I'm going to ask it to next week? I'm going to ask it to Felton Moss next week.
It's a real question
It's a
because
real question.
people get over, I was talking to someone and I was like, the real issue is that governance and running day-to-day operations are different. And I learned a long time ago that the mission is the mission. The strategy is what we can actually argue and negotiate about.
Right.
But the mission
Mm-hmm.
is about making sure our kids are good. And if we're all sitting around a dais and we all got different missions, then we're not even clear on where we're going.
Right.
Because one person is doing this because they want to run for Senate. One person is doing this because they want to run for mayor. One person is doing this so the property value in their town goes down. These are real things.
These are real things. And that's why the question for this week was, is this about the children? Right?
Yeah.
Is as parents send their children to schools and district, superintendents and the board, and everyone's coming together. You know what they're doing. They're having their opening ceremonies. They're having their rah-rah. They're looking at last week's data. They're going over handbooks, all of the things. But we're asking that question, is it really about the children? And as we think about it, why is it, and I think you've already answered it, but this idea of the confusion that people have between their oversight and those unproductive interference mechanisms.
Yes.
What in the world?
Yeah. I'm not here to tell you how to do it.
Right.
I'm here to introduce you to the North Star.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
And the North Star is outcomes need to come up 10%.
That's like, can we just name, and it's so funny because I think one of the conversations we had a number of years ago, we talked about why people in education shy away from data. And we said, in any other profession, data matters. Why can we not just say, look, that you gotta hit, like you've gotta make gains, like it's important, right? And this idea of it and the power in the board. Do you think, maybe you probably know this, right? They understand their power, yes?
Ça dépend. I think it depends.
Interesting.
I think it depends. The way the electorate works in this country, and we know that the most sort of financially backed, politically backed person or set of people or slates of people will win.
Right.
And often those slates, this, are backed by things that have nothing
to do with children
at all. Right. And so the way I've thought about this, both as a board member and in my current role, is my job is to catalyze an ecosystem. Right? Because there are universities that can tell you about what they receive as applications for admission.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
There are business people that can tell you about the people they interview for entry-level positions.
Absolutely.
And some of that is taboo to even talk about publicly because we don't have the words to color it in without being offensive. But the truth of the matter is that the future is here. The future of jobs is here.
It's here.
And I can be honest and say that I have serious concern about whether or not our schools are preparing kids for the future of work. The future of work is collaborative, is tech-driven, it's AI-assisted.
AI-assisted, right. AI-assisted, yeah.
But we got to build an ecosystem. There has to be youth development. There has to be workforce development. We've got to prepare the businesses for, here's the type of kid that you're going to get. Here's what we've learned about kids in this generation. And we haven't done that either.
We haven't done that because the environment into which they will enter still has such a large cadre of leaders from a very particular mindset and ideology about the world of work is supposed to be.
That's right.
And we hear a lot of friction around, and there's always been intergenerational friction. That's never going to go away. It seems, though, the power dynamics within that now are exacerbated and growing in a lot of ways and creating spaces where young people don't feel like they have a place, and
Or
they're not,
voice.
or a voice, and they're not being hired because of a particular mindset about the way they approach work.
That's
and
right.
and our schooling processes, so there's education and there's schooling,
Oh
right?
yeah, the voice taught us.
Right, we
Yeah.
know the right, and we know the difference. And what I say to people is, parents send their kids to school for two reasons. That's it. They want them to learn stuff. That's it. And they
Please.
please, and teach them how to do stuff. Everything has to be in service of those two very simple yet complex enterprises.
Yeah,
And what you just said about not preparing them for the world into which they're going to enter. First of all, we don't know the work that they're going to need to do.
we don't. But we
So
also haven't embraced that uncertainty.
that's
Because
that is that
as
is it.
adults, so first of
Mhm.
all, Americans, our relationship to uncertainty is a whole nother topic.
Come back and
But,
let's come back in February. We'll talk about
but like if you think about it, the people who purport to know don't,
Mm-hmm.
nor are they actually willing to learn.
Mm-hmm.
But the truth of the matter is in the workforce, we have six generations.
Right, we sure do. We sure do.
Six generations.
Yeah.
And they all have different values around what work means and what work is supposed to do and what work is, right? Some folks want people to challenge them. I'm a millennial. I want a team that's going to push back so that when I get outside, I've got the best possible
Right.
answers because I've been sharpened by the people who knew the voices of others.
That's right. That
Everybody don't
iron.
want that. Everybody don't
People
want that.
and I've said it, and we talked about the idea of power protecting. And we
Mm-hmm.
both know this to be true because we've seen it, we've experienced it up close and afar, that the identity of a person gets wrapped up in their position.
That's right.
And when that identity and position are challenged, their default button is going to be a power protecting stance.
Yeah. But
And
here's
that's
the thing,
it,
Tim.
right?
Here's the thing. And I feel like I say this 20 times a day.
You probably do.
I play chess. My son plays chess. I love chess. I grew up playing chess with my grandfather. And if you know anything about chess, a novice chess player is going to take those pawns and let people pick them off.
Yep.
You're going to just push them out there, right? Push who you think is the lowest out. But if you know, a pawn can become a queen.
If you play it right.
It's all about how you play the game. And a lot of that is based on values,
Mm-hmm.
right? And what we fail often to teach children and to teach teachers, I think, is that your positionality does not have to shrink you. It does not have to relegate you to a specific, role.
Right.
You can do what you want to do.
You can.
It is values based. I am doing this because kids need it.
Because kids need it. And they deserve it. Every child deserves an excellent education.
That's right.
And as a board member, we would assume you, if not those exact words, that exact sentiment
Yes.
is brought you to the table to do that kind of work. And so part of the work of a board member and a board, and now in your role, is one of policy, which is really, really in your wheelhouse. So what should leaders ask after a policy is proposed or passed to make sure it actually improves conditions and outcomes for students?
I mean, first of all, it's in the design elements, right? So when we design a policy, we are thinking about who, what, when, where, how, and why, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we also should be thinking about, okay, so who's excluded? And then there's a question of, do they belong inside here, or is there another policy that supports that group?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Many of elected officials, I would say across the board, show up not understanding how policy moves, how policy is designed, how policy changes, and what it takes to move or shift a policy. And we like sort of rely on our personalities to create the coalition of the willing. But the truth of the matter is, and you can see this in cities across the country, there were times maybe 10 years ago we were solving for poverty in certain communities.
In certain communities, right.
But some of those communities have economically advanced.
Yeah, they have.
And so now you're not actually solving for poverty, you're solving for mobility. Those are different.
They're very different because the resource allocation is different, right? As well as the opportunity now has to shift as well, because if I'm not living in the condition of poverty, you still must then begin to match opportunities so that I can continue to move forward and not regress.
That's
because
right.
if we continue to keep an organization or a community that was living in a poverty condition, and we keep giving them the same services, we are absolutely destined for them to remain that way.
And we don't realize, like,
I
don't need resume help. I actually need you to get me from this entry level role to the next step.
Right. I need a job. I need like, where's the actual enterprise so that when I put my resume into the world, it goes someplace to a person or entity prepared to say yes to me.
I think there's another piece too, and I don't know if you've seen this, but I want to explain this phenomenon that I've discovered over the last year. You know, for a long time, I knew we kind of sort of bamboozled a specific generation by telling them, you know, you go to college, you get the credential, you get out, you make $100,000. That is not true. We devalued experience, right? And so there are so many folks roaming through the world saying, but I did what you told me to do, and I still cannot secure a role. Yeah. And when you see those people, there's this entire set of, I even hate the language soft skills, but dispositions and behaviors.
Right, because I don't like the term either, but yes, absolutely.
But there's these dispositions, behaviors, affects, colloquialisms that we don't solve for in school. We let it be.
Because we make the assumption that because we name the skill the way we name it, that it is inbred and naturally occurring. It's like the idea that we say to teachers, build relationships, as though you just wake up on Tuesday morning at 8:07 and the relationship just happens. Yeah. We do not help young people acquire the skills that are not as measurable by hard things or tactile things that they need to be.
Nor do we teach them explicitly.
We do not. And before we go one more step, I want to remind everybody out there, please hit the like, subscribe, and share button next. Anyway, back to the show. But yeah, we don't. And it's funny because I had a conversation with a set of principals that I'm working with in Massachusetts. And I said, okay, you are talking about your students being able to do X, Y, and Z. When have you taught them that? I said, do your students know how to do the learning? How do your students know that they're actually learning a thing when you don't give them notebooks? They can't take anything home. You're using a false equity model that says, don't give them anything, because if they take it home, then they won't have anybody there to help them with it, because that's what equity means. But your kids are not learning critical skills that I know you learned when you were in school. And I know I learned because I'm a woman of a certain age, and that's how they taught back then. And that's how they taught with our notebooks and our binders and all of those things.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, it helped us acquire a set of skills through the academics. So they didn't have separate classes for organization. Yeah. I learned how to be organized in my history class with Nancy Thomas, who talked about smack to you if you didn't do it.
No, that's right. And so, like, when you look at work like Heifetz around adaptive leadership, or Amy Edmondson's work around teaming, both of them tell you that you build those skills by organizing people around a task.
Around the task.
Around a mission, right? And if our mission in schools is to get kids prepared for the real world, so to speak, how are we organizing them so that they know how to negotiate? They know how to express agency. They know how to advocate for themselves or others. They understand their own core values. They understand the distance between what they do and what they say is their integrity.
Because it's not in a lesson.
It's not in a lesson.
It's not in a lesson. It's not in the curriculum. It has to be in the curriculum.
But it's supposed to be in the hidden curriculum.
It's supposed to be in the, right. It's got to be written out. Like somebody had to be, curriculum designer and put it in the lesson, when in fact, that is the fastest way to ensure that there isn't student agency.
That's
and
right.
Part of the reason why student agency does not get practiced and taught is because it will get practiced in the place where it is taught.
And we have a commitment to hierarchy and authority that does not allow us to make space for discourse or ideas that may be different from ours.
Our own. Even though we say we want student agency, and I say all the time, student agency is beyond student council. That's not student agency. That's not. It's student involvement, but it's not student agency. And so many schools really have different ideas about that. What I mean? About what it means for there to be student agency. And before we go, we always give power moves. And I want to share some power moves with you and get your take on our power moves. So power move number 1. Translate power into policy. Name the student need being addressed. Identify the policy, budget, partnership, or system lever connected to that need. Ask what implementation will require across schools, agencies, leaders, and communities. She's like, yep.
I mean, yes. And I think the most important is the third one.
Right. Ask implementation. That's what you remember when we were at Ed Trust together, we would always say, I love a good policy, but you got to close the loop through implementation. You got to put the implementation piece out there. Yes.
And like what I've lived in the National Math Improvement Project for the last 4 years is just that.
Mm-hmm.
We have the 6th largest school districts in the nation focused on implementing high quality instructional materials. And the only way you can think about implementation is through something like a Bowman and Deal.
Yeah.
Right? Like what are the pieces that I'm playing with? Right?
Yes.
Who are you can also use the strategic triangle, right? Like what capacities do I have? What do I need? What's missing in the ecosystem? What needs to be injected?
That's right.
Public-private partnership, in my opinion, is one of the most powerful ways to squeeze boards to do what's most important.
What's most important? Public, right? Yes, absolutely.
I think we have to learn from each other,
which we don't do enough of. We don't do enough of learning because, again, we have, and you brought this up, we keep assuming that a person on a board is there for children. When you named it, maybe they're there because it's going to be a springboard to the next.
That's right.
Maybe it's there because it is ensuring property values. Maybe it is there for whatever reason, but like the children are the avenue through which I get it, right? Here's a power move number 2. Test the agenda against evidence and children's needs. Before advancing an issue, ask, what student need does this address? Examine the data, student experience, and again, the implementation realities behind the issue. Notice when ideology, adult visibility, or political conflict is taking up more space than the evidence itself.
Wait, so is this your next book? Because we could write a book
We
on
can,
this.
listen, y'all out there heard it. We can talk about this right now, right? Notice the
No.
ideology, the adult of visibility, this power of the adult positionality that can be shaping so much of what our kids get or don't get.
Yeah. And this is probably the saddest thing for me because I think as America has become more focused on individualism
Mm-hmm.
and we've moved away from collectives, and I mean, and you see this as small as like beauty, there's no really such thing as a beauty salon anymore. Sort of
No,
folks have their own suites and they want to be
that's right.
alone and do their own thing.
That's right.
I mean, it's even more complicated on social media, the way folks sort of move and do things. This scares me. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be honest. This is what scares me the most
Mhm.
about the future of our collective society.
Yeah, because we are getting away from, and we know that communities of color, particularly African communities, are collective by nature.
That's
And
right.
we are becoming more and more fragmented across the ethnicities within Blackness,
That's right.
which are fueled and stirred by a society that really must thrive on division in
That's
order
right.
for it to exist in the way that it exists currently. And here's our
And
paragraph number 3: govern for implementation, not performance. Ask how the decision will be carried out, funded, measured, and communicated. McKinsey has a real change, the McKinsey change model that really focuses on this idea of how do you communicate? What does it mean to have a strong communication plan for change? But then clarify who is responsible for that implementation and what success looks like. We say this all the time at every level. This is really important for boards too, I would imagine. Then use public meetings to build accountability, not simply visibility.
yeah. And I think this is important too. It's something I think about a lot, particularly with schools, is we talk a lot about communicating externally.
Mm.
Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're building. Here's what the board's doing.
Mm-hmm.
But did we tell the people that we're doing it what they trying to build?
Maybe at the water cooler, maybe at the
Right.
board meeting water cooler.
That internal messaging is what builds the values
That's
of
right.
the institution.
The
That is
institution.
delivering the service.
Yeah. Too much.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
But we're doing it.
We do. Well, I know you're doing it, girl. I know that you are absolutely making Jersey City a better place.
I'm trying every day.
And I know the students and the families are the better because you are in the position you're in. And what would change if every education decision had to pass this test? Is this about children? And can we show how it will improve what they experience?
Oh my goodness. I wouldn't be talking about facilities management as much. Old air conditioners, HVAC systems going. I wouldn't even be questioning whether or not on a 103-degree day if children have air conditioning. It just wouldn't even be a question. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
It would not be a question of, I mean, you've seen this. I'm sure you've written about this where, the teacher wants to fight the kid because the kid doesn't have a pencil. As a principal, come get this box of pencils so you're not fighting with kids about pencils. This is silly.
Remember 2 things? Learn stuff, learn how to do stuff. Every single thing from the HVAC to the pencil has to advance learning stuff.
That's
learning
right.
how to do stuff.
That's right.
And if it was really about the children, we wouldn't be having, and here's the other thing, not only would we not be having the conversation, the mechanisms to build the responsibility around having the pencil would be there.
Yes.
Because I would, and this is my own sort of like mental thing. I don't think kids began to lose pencils as much until teachers were forced to just give it to them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just give it to them. Okay, well, if I know that you're going to give me a pencil every single time I ask for it, guess what I'm going to not learn how to do? Keep my pencil.
There you go.
Wow. Well, folks, you have heard it from Dr. Dia Bryant. It's been fantastic. I do want to let y'all know that we will have Dr. Felton Moss next. I know. He will be continuing. He'll be wrapping up our 3-week cycle on talking about school boards next week. He is a school board member. He's an assistant professor. He's a managing director of government relations at NBSA, former policy advisor, all of the things. He's going to be fantastic. And we want to thank you for helping us continue the conversation. Folks, make sure you're here next week for another session of Let's Talk Power Live, where we talk about power and education. We're going to wrap up talking about board members. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. Dr. Bryant, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
We will talk soon, everybody. Have a good one.
Be well.